All right, welcome back to Modern Mondays at Guardian Games. I am joined this evening by,
Travis Cooper.
and we're checking out some some exciting modern action for you
That
for
voice
this.
you're hearing is Ian Lunger. You forgot to say your own name.
Yeah, sir. Sorry. you know, it's the Modern Mondays
At Guardian
at
Games.
Guardian Games, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, we're in round 3 of 4 here. It looks like we got a couple players that are new to playing at Guardian Games, but are sitting in the 2-0 bracket here.
Nice.
So got some Green Stompy versus some Boros Burn.
Man, it's been a sec since I've seen that the actual back of Magic cards in some sleeves. I think that's great that Grant's rocking the clear sleeves.
There was a minute when I went up to see if they wanted to play on stream that I thought Grant was shuffling just like cards like bareback there, and I
Just
was it
the
made me real nervous. Uh, but no, he just has some I think Dragon Shield clear sleeves.
yeah, good stuff. And Grant's gonna go ahead and send back the first hand. Peter taking a look. So, good question about Monday. I would say, um, I think Fridays usually have a pretty high turnout.
I'd say Monday is probably the highest turnout, but Fridays is close, and sometimes they can vacillate. Right now, we're at 34 people, which is on sort of like the lower side of things. This is kind of maybe the slower time of year, I would say, like December through February. Starts picking up a lot in March. But 34 is like the lower limit. Usually it's like high 20s, low 30s, and then it'll fluctuate to 60 to we've even had just like regular Monday nights with like 100 people here, which is kind of nuts, but has happened occasionally.
Phew, so Grant Moles keeps a no lander, does not want to go down to 5, really hoping to hit here. That's pretty rough. Peter drops a Hex Drinker. Ooh, this is gonna be a tough one if Grant's not able to hit a land by next turn. Then I think we're probably gonna.
Yeah, Mono Green is one of the decks that can really punish opponents stumbling. It is just very efficient at the thing it does, and the thing it does is put like efficiently costed creatures onto the battlefield every turn on curve.
Barkhide Troll. All right, we're just gonna get a quick concession here from Grant. Just misses the land, doesn't want to mull too low. On the bright side, um, Peter has probably no idea what Grant's playing here, so um, Grant can go ahead and sideboard here without Peter having any knowledge of what they're on.
Yeah, I feel like that's a play that I have actually done and burned before. This was before the London Mulligan, so I think that probably changes things a bit. But Mulligan down to 5, you have a handful of 1 drops, and you used to get the scry, and you would be on the draw. And so I have kept no land hands in that situation, where you have basically like your scry, so that's 2 cards, and third card for your draw. So it's so, not something that is a wrong decision necessarily. I do feel like the London Mulligan changes that quite a bit.
Yes.
So I probably would have taken one more Mulligan there.
Yep.
But still, it's like, judgment call that if could have paid off if there was a land on the top.
Right.
Just didn't happen. And I do feel like then conceding, knowing that there's no way you can come back, is also the correct decision. So that way your opponent doesn't know how to sideboard against you.
Definitely. I think something that's really important to kind of always keep on your radar in Magic is um, you need to just make decisions based on your current situation. And I think it can be easy to beat yourself up about previous previous decisions or anything else or other things like that, and then make improper choices because you may have done something you didn't agree with to get yourself to that point. Um, but I think just being able to quickly forget about what has happened and just make the proper choice where you are when you're there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a like a skill that if you're gonna be, play at high level Magic, everyone makes mistakes. I've seen a lot of pros make mistakes. I've played against pros. They've made mistakes. And I feel like what makes you just a really good player is to be able to like recognize what the current situation is and then make the best decision from there. So, and sometimes there's like judgment calls that don't go your way that aren't mistakes, and being able to recognize when that happens is important too.
Sure. Yeah, whatever you need to do to kid yourself into believing you're perfect. No, I kid.
uh,
All right, looks like Peter's got a keeper. Grant's gonna lava spike here to start.
Send a message. Oh, hello, all the new folks joining us. Oh, Pelt Collector, turn
Ooh,
one.
Pioneer All-Star Pelt Collector.
I feel like the mono green Stompy has been sort of like a perennial, like intro, like the perennial low cost deck that is actually can win you an FNM. It's doing some powerful things, but it has gotten a lot of new cards lately.
Yeah, I think green is great. I like it when there's always a valid mono green deck in formats. I think it's just good for the game. And I think, like a lot of us came into Magic with creatures, and green is kind of at its base, that's where the creatures are supposed to live.
I came into Magic with lightning bolts and counter spells.
I don't know what to think about that or whether I believe you.
It's true. And goblins. I did play a lot of goblins back in the day. Not good goblins.
Well, Pelt Collector is gone, but it's been replaced by a Hex Drinker with a Rancor. But this does force Grant to essentially cycle the Searing Blaze for only a single damage. So it gets the Hex Drinker off the board, but 2 mana for 1 damage is not exactly where Burn wants to be, but I think Grant felt like the trade-off of getting the Hex Drinker off the board was worth it.
Yeah, the previous Searing Blaze that got 3 damage was sweet, but that one was more of a defensive play. Maybe Grant realizing that he's the control deck in this matchup and playing accordingly.
So Grant still stuck on 2 mana, so has to kind of decide when we want to just turn the corner and start going upstairs. I do like running out Eidolon here. It looks like Grant still has plenty of gas in the tank between looks like there's a Bolt and Skewer of Critics available. So if Peter steps a little too heavily with this Eidolon out, Grant could pretty easily just end the game back in the other direction.
Is that Avatar the Resolute that we have down for Peter?
I believe so. So Avatar the Resolute, in this case, came down without any 1/1 counters on it. Kind of interesting that we didn't see Peter run out the Rancor on the Avatar um, before moving in for combat. I think I might have liked to see the Rancor run out.
Huh.
I know it would have cost Peter a couple of 2 life. I guess maybe Peter's feeling like going to 9 is pretty dangerous here.
Huh. I sort of like an attack in here from Grant, maybe. Game could go either way. It really depends on how the players sequence their spells.
Right. I I think if I'm Grant, if Peter attacks, I'm considering blocking with the Eidolon.
I am definitely doing that if Peter attacks with both creatures, because to me that signals that Peter is going to have, well, actually, I'm not, because then if Peter casts something else, he's gonna get a trigger for 2 damage. It's gonna go down to 6. There's already 3 damage on the table, and if Peter doesn't cast anything else, you can swing in for that 2 points. So basically, you just need one more burn spell in your hand, and you win the game. So I think I'm just not blocking here, because you almost have this guaranteed wrapped up if you have one more 3 damage spell.
Looks like there's another Searing Blaze in hand for Grant, and I know I saw a Skewer.
There could also be the pump spell here, but no pump
Interesting.
spell.
So Peter's just gonna pass.
Oh, we got a
So
Rift Bolt trigger.
yeah. So Rift Bolt 3 and 2 to Grant.
Uh,
And Grant missed on a land drop but drew a Goblin Guide. So 2 Goblin Guide. That'll put, I mean, it puts Grant to 3, but that's enough damage to get it done if Peter doesn't have a. So Grant gets there in game 2.
oh. Yeah, he was alive.
He was alive? Okay, yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, good. I was gonna say, yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. There was like actually, dude. Yeah.
So Grant takes a close one.
Yeah. Now, this is one that matters here. Yeah, now this.
I was a little bit afraid of an aspect of Hydra there on Peter's side for that additional +4 pump, but Peter didn't have anything else.
Yeah, because wonder what Peter had in hand there. It's kind of surprising to see this deck that's pretty low to the ground pass with cards in hand and 4 mana up.
It was definitely one Raincore, and I think there was 2 other cards. Seeing no blocks by Grant, I definitely would have deployed another creature just for defensive purposes there, so you don't just die to a lightning bolt. But
Well, that's kind of tough because you take 2. You take 2 off deploying another creature.
yeah,
And that's essentially the same amount of damage that you're going to take if the Eidolon attacks. It's
Yeah.
close, definitely close,
Hmm.
but I guess at least then you have something on board, and giving the Eidolon a free attack is essentially the same thing. So I think I'm with you that like overall, if you have to make that choice and you've already swung, you probably deploy something if you've got it.
Yeah, it's a tough decisions. I think maybe the decision tree then is like, do you attack with both creatures? So yeah, that was good end last couple turns to that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, I like watching these kind of fast aggro matchups. Burn against any deck is always kind of interesting because the decision tree usually comes down to like a few very key decisions um, that make the difference in the match. And actually, it looks like Grant just slotted 2 deflecting palms into their deck, which that's a card I can get behind.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're assuming that Peter's going to be attacking with creatures that are more than 3 power, that saves. Especially if you have Rancored up attacker, that does saves you some life in a racing situation, and then throws it right back at your opponent.
Yeah, I think there's no way to get away from the fact that this matchup will be a racing situation. And, green plays a lot of fatties that can get higher than 3 power pretty easily. So I'm definitely on board with something like Deflecting Palm coming in out of the board for Grant.
Yeah, so it looks like Grant has 2 deflecting palms, a Grim Lavamancer, Smash the Smithereens, Skullcracks, some Tormod Crypts, 2 core Firewalkers, 3 Path to Exiles. So I actually like Path in this situation, and I kind of like Grim Lavamancer. I feel like you're the control deck if you're playing Burn in this matchup, and you really have to deal with the board. And I feel like you need a path for the creatures that have more than 3 toughness. And what do you think about that?
I actually think that I would rather just lean into the racing plus deflecting palm angle than the path angle personally. Um, yeah. Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There are
So yeah,
so
just took a look at
we're looking at.
Peter's sideboard.
Do you wanna read out the sideboard?
Yes, Peter's sideboard has 1 Grafdigger's Cage, which does not matter, 4 Feed the Clan, which very much matter.
How many
Uh,
feet the clans?
so many, 4. 2 Heroic Interventions, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Collector Oof, and it looks like a couple Scavenging Ooze, and a Veil of Summers, and a Shaper's Sanctuary. Man, I think you could bring in the Shaper's Sanctuary, but I think you just you bring in the 4 Feed the Clans and call it a day.
I think I'm on the play. I'm bringing in the Scavenging Ooze too.
Yeah. Okay.
Haven't seen a Feed the Clan cast in a while.
Yeah, it has been a second. Let's take a look. I actually felt like this card got mostly replaced by the 1 mana version from Amonkhet. Help. It's 4 life and 8 life instead of 5 and 10.
I'm not helping you right
All
now.
right. Chad, if anybody can think of the 1 mana life gain spell from Amonkhet that also has 2 modes, that's 4 and 8. There we go. Chat coming in clutch. Life goes on. Let's take a look at Life Goes On.
Well, sometimes you're gonna have ferocious.
There we go. There we go. I tend to like this a little bit better against Burn just because I think keeping up 1 mana can just be a lot easier when you're still trying to deploy things to the board. And I think that Weather the Storm is certainly sweet in some decks. I run Weather the Storm in Jund.
For Storm.
Yeah. Yeah. But I kind of like Life Goes On in a lot of creature decks. I think that's my preferred life gain spell. So Grant offers the trade.
Well, you don't play a haste creature not to attack on turn 1.
How did Grant take a damage? Did I miss something? Should Grant be at 20?
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh, he
Oh, he
fetched.
did. Oh.
Oh, he just missed the graveyard there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. The fetch is just out of. Okay, thanks, chat. So this is a scary situation if you're Grant. Eidolon of the Great Revel is a really powerful card in this matchup, but if you find yourself on the losing side of the race, then Eidolon can lock you out of the game.
Yeah, I feel like that's what it's a nuance call, but I feel like if you played a lot of Burn, there's certain matchups where you want Eidolon on the play and you don't want it on the draw, and I feel like you sideboard very differently on the play and draw, and this is one where I would consider keeping it in on the play, but definitely taking it out on the draw.
Sure. Ooh, especially with the painful mana base coming into play for this game. Grant's going to be hard pressed to come out of this with the W, especially given the Hex Drinker is going to be very difficult to interact with on Grant's side.
Well, Whew.
Right. And so Grant kind of realizing basically at any point here, if we tap the Sunbake Canyons,
Oh gosh.
so Grant takes 4 to play that other Eidolon. So honestly, like, I think if you're Grant, I think you have to double block the Hex Drinker with both Eidolons here.
Yeah.
I think like you're not gonna win this game if those Eidolons are on the table with such a large discrepancy in life and with 2 Sunbake Canyons on the board.
I like chat's suggestion of Peter just sitting back and leveling up Hex Drinker. That's not bad necessarily.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't think I would have attacked there. So Grant blocks with 1 Eidolon. Yeah, like I said, I would have liked to see block with both.
Yeah, you definitely want to take out the Hex Drinker for sure. Oh,
That's
they're so big.
such a house. And trigger on the experiment one. So Grant's going to take a look at the top of the deck here, but it's definitely looking pretty bad. 2 Swift Spears and a Grim Lavamancer in hand. Don't think that any of those things are going to help Grant out. So, and that's going to be the game. So Peter's going to be moving on to our 3-0 bracket on mono green.
Ah, I love it.
Well, should we see if we can?
Oh yeah, we got 22 minutes left. We
Yeah.
can probably find another match here. I'm gonna jump out of the booth and see if we can get anything else.